Hi everyone, my name's Anthony Cummins and welcome to this video. Now today we're going to talk to you about the sort of progression of the ninja throughout the ages, and I'm doing this in support of In Search of the Ninja by Anthony Cummins, one of my earliest books but still very relevant today, so please get it, In Search of the Ninja by Anthony Cummins. That's wow. Right, okay, so I've been asked by someone to say, Anthony, give us an overview of the ninja throughout the different centuries. So I'm going to do that. Here we go. Right, now, this video starts with a fundamental flaw, an absolutely fundamental flaw. Also, somebody told me the other day to look at the camera, but quite annoyingly, I'm trying to look in the center of the screen, but the camera's at the left, so I have to look off screen and I can't see where I'm framed, so I can't work that one out, guys. Apple just invented the stupidest position ever for a bloody camera. So let's have a look at this weird line that's out of focus at the side. No, can't do it. Right, so basically, we've got to go through the ninja throughout the centuries, but this is a fundamental flaw to this because we're using the word ninja. So everybody in nearly all conversations gets this issue wrong. Not wrong is the wrong word, but they don't contemplate this. Is ninja is a word used in the past that has, you know, people know what it meant in the past, but we assume it's something different. So the word ninja probably, this is not solid, but probably was a word used in the 1580s to 1600s after to identify a group of people who existed doing the jobs of espionage. Many types of job, from hiding, saboteurs, language exchange. So while we're looking at the 13th, 14th, 15th century, the word ninja might not be used for that person, but the word ninja is later used, 1580 onwards, to definitely mean those people. And it's iconic today to mean people doing certain things. So we have to be careful. Whenever we're talking, we're looking for the word ninja in history, in all the history documents, and we might not be able to find it there, probably because they weren't using that word, they were using a different word. Now, to add a further depth of annoyance to this, there is clearly the use of the word shinobi throughout history, and shinobi no mono is a different word. It's a compound word which is connected to shobi, so it gets really complicated. So I won't bore you with that. You guys who've been with me know all this. So let's go through the different ages, what we know from documentation just about shinobi. So let's have a look at the earliest reference to ninja, the Taiheki War Chronicle, the Great Peace, the story of Great Peace. So one night, volume 20, one night it was windy and raining. Such and such a body took advantage of the weather and sent out Itsumono no Shinobi, excellent shinobi, to infiltrate Hachiman Yama and to set fire to buildings. So the word infiltrate is there, set fire to buildings is there. I would actually like to get go back through the kanji for these and check them in crisp detail to see the actual, small bits. Volume 24 says, the shogunate's military governor, such a person, led 200 armed people on a night raid and approached such a place from the direction where Kukyo no shinobi, that's robust shinobi, were hiding. Those soldiers in the complex did not care for life or death and went to the top of the building after spending all their arrows and committed suicide. Now, that's shinobi used in two ways in the 14th century. So we've got to imagine it's a Taiheki. Somebody's, now they've said we're sending them to set fire to buildings and infiltrate, and they use the word shinobi. Absolutely stand out, that is shinobi. It appears to be a noun, it appears to be a real, like, describing somebody, not an action, and it appears that they are good at what they do, and that they infiltrate, and that they burn buildings down. That's about as classic ninja as you're ever going to get, yeah? So we're not looking at the ninja figure, we're looking at people dressed 14th century wear. This is the time of Kusunoki Masashige, the big shoulder pads, not the 1980s, no perms here. We're talking the Osode shoulder pads, we're talking headbands, Chinese-esque patterns in the armour, not the black somber patterns, you know, of later Japan, the sort of flamboyant, look at my pretty cuffs, sort of, you know, walking down the street in Soho sort of clothes, you know what I mean? Now, whether the ninja wore that or not, or the shinobi wore that, we don't know, but that's the world you're looking at. A very colourful Japan, a very pre-Japanese Japan. Now, what I mean by that is Japanese Japan turns up in about the 1500s. Before that, Japan loves China. It's literally China, China, China. That's all they say. So what we know is whatever they're dressed in, they're creeping through and they're burning stuff down, or they're approaching a certain place and some shinobi are hidden, firing arrows and then committing suicide from a burning building, I think it is. And there's the idea here of somebody infiltrating others and then somebody else shooting shinobi there. Now I need to check those for the context. I haven't gone through them in a long time. So if anybody can go through them quotes from those volumes, have a look at them and see what the crack is. Right, so that leads us, so that's the 14th century, so that's 1375 roughly. Now the 1400s, Nojiri has found possibly a quote which says shinobi something in the 1400s, but there's a big problem with this. What he's found is actually transcribed in the Edo period and not manipulated but changed, added to commentary on. So there's a big debate of which bit is 1400s and which bit is Edo period. That is so annoying, because if we had a clear, crisp version of it that was from the Sengoku period, which then maybe if you all pay for me to go to Japan, I'll get to the library, dig it out, and there's one there that we think we found, which is Sengoku period, and if we pull it out, it's not on digital record, so I've got to fly to Japan, fly in there, open the bloody book, find the page and say, yes, Sengoku period, shinobi is said. Sengoku period, writing a Sengoku transcription of a 1400s manual saying shinobi. That's ace. So, but at the minute, without that, 1400s, 15th century, nada, nothing. Doesn't mean there's no espionage. That's easy for you to say, comments. Doesn't mean there's no espionage. Doesn't mean there's no spying. Doesn't mean it's not Chinese based, like we've talked about before with Les Con. Doesn't mean that there's nothing going on. But we're definitely blank in history. No problem. 1500s seems still blank, except we get to 1560 when we get the Hattori Hanzo Shinobi Hiden. People have started to become too accustomed to say that's not really from that date, because some Japanese researchers said that. There is no proof, so listen to me now, listen. There is no proof of that date being wrong. Zero. Okay, proof for date being wrong, presented by anyone, zero. The date in the actual manual, 1560. Done. So there you go. So we've got the 1560 manual of Hattori Hanzo describing what it means to be a ninja. Now, probably you guys have all read that because it's my Secret Traditions of the Shinobi book. And we then get a document in 1586, which Stephen Turnbull says he thinks is a later 1800s thing. I don't. I think it's 1500s transcribed in 1830 odd, but he actually gives a reason for it. He says such a god is mentioned, and you think that god or that person or something wasn't around at that date. But I remember viewing it, and it wasn't quite right. I remember looking at his stuff going, no, that's not. I need to. It's not incorrect, but it doesn't ring true to me. So I need to work that out. So basically, the 1400s all the way up to 1560, you get nothing till the Shinobi Hiden pops up, but only volume 1. The other volumes are from the 1600s. So later, it's clearly collected later, transcribed later within the family or within the lineage, but we don't know there. So there's nothing. But what we can do for the 1500s is get an idea of what's going on. We know that from a very famous monk's diary that Igamono used to infiltrate places. We know from Ogasawara Sakun that he's saying the Igamono are all over Japan, being hired by other people. So we don't know, we don't really have any direct evidence, but what we can do from early 1600s evidence is say that we know what's going on in Japan, okay? Oda Nobunaga's going across the land, Hideyoshi's there, Tokugawa's there, Takeda's there. So we've got thieves working for Takeda Shingen. We've got thieves working for the Hojo clan. We've got Igamono positioned all over Japan, or in most provinces in Japan. We know that other people are doing shinobi. I've heard that there is I have read and researched, but I haven't pushed it out there yet, that there's actually 2 types of shinobi here. You've got people you hire yourself from outside and people you hire yourself from inside. So we know that these armies are going to war. We're on the march. the camping, you know, you're sending out scouts. So you've got to imagine there, it's Sengoku period. The armor has changed now from Chinese, not Chinese style, but Chinese patterns, bright colors, lots of bright laces, and it's toned down a lot. We've got lots of Western stuff coming in, muskets have come in, darker material. We've got much more somber Japanese look. People have gone for a more wabi-sabi style. There's a lot more like, you know, flute playing, in the wind, Japanese, somber-esque, Zen stuff going on. And then we know they're moving across the landscape. And as the scouts are going out, the shinobi are going to check everywhere. And they're setting up camp. They're getting everything ready, and the night time comes. The fires are spread out along the camp. The big fires are erected there. The troops are all set up, and basically, before castles get massive, we've got shinobi running in and out of these, and they get into other people's castles, and then... So we go back to the 1300s, 1400s. We know these are wooden palisades, just mounts. Imagine looking up to a forest on a hill. You know there's a castle in there somewhere, or the forest might have been cut back to build the castle, and that's what you were originally looking at. Now things are starting to change. Big stones are starting to be put in place, large wooden sort of erections going everywhere. No laughing. And then you've got sort of, then it starts to be called whitewashed walls, and then we get the keep. Oda Nobunaga builds the first keep. Isn't it strange how the Westerners arrive and Oda Nobunaga starts building keeps? You know what I mean? You'll have to find the dates on that, guys. The first person to arrive in Japan, and then the first from the West, and then Oda Nobunaga building strongholds like the West, using guns like the West. In fact, it really annoys me that nobody actually points out that clearly they're using Western warfare now in Japan, like massive amounts of Western warfare. Volley fires, single castles, you know what I mean? You're like, instead of just ramparts. Like, if you want to know about Japanese castles, basically, some of the older stuff was more... similar to Iron Age in England, where it's like just mounds and ramps with wooden palisades round it, doors that open up and down, very much Iron Age-esque. Then you get to like medieval, here's some castles. The Western people go over to Japan, Nobunaga starts building them. But I haven't checked the dates on that. His first castle building versus the first person who gets to Japan and starts chatting, which is I think 1553, before the guns arrive. I'm sure somebody gets there earlier, so we'll have to check that one. So Nobunaga starts doing all that sort of stuff later on. So anyway, where am I? So we've got a much busier battlefield. We've got shinobi who used to go through just bamboo fences and break open bamboo fences and crawl through and put tunnels through the fences. Now they're faced with these big castles and this idea of a much larger force. And what used to be troops of mounted men move around in the older days, in the 16th century, that's the 1500s, is like phenomenal. But that leaves a lot more places for them to infiltrate. And now they're starting to look at guard houses, bigger guard houses, looking at, even the Bansen Chukai says, to get all the way to the main keep from the outer Maru is you wouldn't be able to crawl it, because you'd be out of breath, you'd be done. So you have to go through now with yo in within yo within in, which means you crawl through the first part, then you use your little special pass. Morning Bob, morning Joe, everyone, yeah. You know, you talk to people as though you know them, because you've clocked their names, you've clocked the stuff. Then you get through, and then you get through with the next pass, and then you're creeping under a certain point. Then you're creeping up, then you're setting fire to the gunpowder stores, and then you're using a certain thing to get out. Or if your guys have come in, you've set the fire, you have to hide, and then when your guys are coming in, you've actually got a special lantern that you hold up, or a special pass, and you're like, no, I'm on your side. And they've been told that if you come across somebody holding such a sign, you know, don't kill them. So a shinobi's really got to be careful not to be killed by their own side. So then, of course, they're in the height of the wars. They're really there in the height of the wars. They've got tons of stuff to do. Igamono are the cream of the crop. Rise to the top. I'm your Terminator. Come on, guys. Somebody write the lyrics down below. Jump around. It's the cream of the crop. I rise to the top. Something Schwarzenegger. Right. So these guys. So in the normal day, you know there's going to be some grizzled guy there who's really fit because he's going up and down the mountains all the bloody time. He's actually active shinobi. He's probably got fur on. Now, I do have something from a Westerner that says in the West, we use fur on the inside like this. Have you ever watched all these, like The Last Kingdom, Vikings and all that? They always have the fur on the outside. Did you know that didn't happen in Western Europe? Not much anyway, if ever. They have fur on the inside. But he says in Japan, they have fur on the outside, which he said was strange. Of course, now every bloody film has fur on the outside because they're looking cool, like Space Marines or something. But no, actually, fur is technically meant to go in the inside. So they got this idea of Igamono, possibly dressed in fur, straw stuff on, capes on, probably a hat that they take off when they go out, grizzled guys, shaved, chonmage, probably beards because they're in war and it's Sengoku period where they have a lot more mustaches. Sword strapped up, stuff all tied back, dirty, dark, you know, out there, stuff is falling to pieces, probably a bit nasty, probably got a bit of a reputation, probably kept to the side, and they're there, and they're used to the best of their ability, and out they go burning stuff down. The war is over. What's that Doors song? The war is over. I think Unknown Soldier, if you remember that song. Unknown Soldier by the Doors, I think he sings, the war is over. Sekigahara done. We've got rid of the Osaka campaigns. 16, 14, 16, 15, 16, 15, 16, 16, around there. I never remember them. So there you go. We got them two. They've sorted it. Ninja, are they using there? Not very difficult to find stuff. We have had something. The rebellion, the Christian rebellion, is put down in 1639, and that area, the problems in that area, Shimabara rebellion, and there Shinobi used there, but I think they're Kokomono, but they fail because they're like a generation without war. It's been 30 years since they've been to war properly, so I think they fail, but they still do give it a good go. So then what we find now is a lot of grizzled old men, probably in the 17th century, early century, grizzled old men, a bit ex-military veterans, hard as nails, tough as old boots, that start dying off by 1630, 1640. You start coming to the end of these guys. The last are there. So you've suddenly 17th century, mid 17th century, you've got a lot of people who were brought up by their granddads or their dads, who were grizzled, rough old men who'd been through the wars and who were there in the most dramatic battle of all time, Sekigahara. They were there for all the stuff. They've known all the skills. So you got this first wave of non-active military. They literally just sat around, but well acquainted with ninja ways. It's here that people start realizing, oh, things have changed. Now, how quickly has the world changed? 2020, yeah? You know, how quickly? So you go to the year 2000 and look at the social world for the year 2020. It's a different place. You go to 1980, 1979, 1980, whole different world. 40 years. I'm 42 years old. The world from when I was born to the world now is a phenomenally different place. The attitudes are different. The snowflakes are different. You used to get lads when I was a kid, and they were all working in factories, all hard drinking at the weekend, all scrapping at the weekend, because they were brought up by World War II people. That's my opinion. World War II people came home, were like, done, been prisoner of wars in Japan, been working on the front, been knifing people, came home, and of course, England was a bit tougher then. It was like, there's an old saying, which my granddad used to say, when ships were made of wood and men were made of iron. And that's what, but look at it now. I'm not going to, but look at it now. So that's 40 years. So you imagine from 1600 to 1650, people like Natori Sanjuro Masazumi, Fujibayashi Yasutake, Chikamatsu Shigenori, he's a bit later. They all start going, look at the snowflakes, look at the snowflakes. And they've got snowflake samurais. Obviously, they're not as bad as today's snowflakes. They still have to commit suicide. They still have to fight people. But they're like, have you seen my new tissue? You know, hanging out of there. Look at my new cuffs. They've got all this going on. They're absolutely campers, you know, a row of tents. And these hardened warriors are like, nah. So this third generation is getting a bit naff now. Let's start writing. And then we get an explosion. 1600 onwards sees an explosion in ninja writing. Before that, you can't find it. You cannot find it. Now, the question I've asked people, and I would love to know, is can you find other military teachings before 1600? How many documents do we find of military manuals before the year 1600? Because everybody's doing it. So there's a couple, but my question is if you put it in a graph, the amount of manuals written in 1560, 1570, 1580 versus those written in 1600, 1620, rockets. So does the Shinobi one and the military one reach the same? So basically, you start getting Shinobi who now, not doing anything, but got these traditions, practicing their traditions, they hired a shinobi, start writing it all down. And now they become masters of passing on traditions and teaching. So by the 1700s, this is starting to turn. By the 1700s, ninja are just totally not used anymore. They become guards. They genuinely become guards. They're clearly... Ninjas are always used as guards, okay? They're always used as guards. When you're on campaign, they guard the inner sanctum and they go out and do things. We know that. So they haven't changed their job, but there's nothing for them to go and do. So I have got one ninja report, so it's not unpublished yet, but translated, of a guy in the 1700s who goes to check for his lord in a different province, actually infiltrates the castle in the middle of the 1700s. Whether this is a real report or not, I don't know. I'm going to have to get it checked, but it's there. And a guy says, yeah, I infiltrated the castle, not much going on. It was somebody got ill, and some guy got ill, one of the lord or the lord's sons or something. And they arrested all the doctors in the town. And this shinobi went to find out what the crack is. And he was literally acting as a peasant. And shinobi creeps into the castle, get out, comes back, writes his report for the lord. We still have that report. Bing! 1700, roughly. So then by 1800s, these guys are literally nothing more than glorified guards. Their traditions have gone. They're passing down hardly anything. Now, we know this is the same in lots of things. Traditions are just dying out. Western stuff is starting to appear. Even though Japan is cut off at this point, they're getting information through, more and more information, and there's debates raging about whether Western medicine, I think it's Dutch medicine at the time, is better than in-your Chinese medicine, and they're arguing about it all, and that's going on. And then eventually the rebellions are started, and the Boshin War starts, and the Imperial Restoration. Now, somebody asked me the most amazing question the other day, and I can't answer it. I've never even thought about it, because I always go back in times like, does it say Shinobi in the Boshin War and in the Major Restoration? Oh my god, I need to find that answer out. We need to find Shinobi in the Boshin War or basically the Restoration, all of that period. We need to find it. I haven't had a look. How amazing is that? So, by this point, they're literally guards. Edo Castle has some Igamono hanging around. All the other places have probably... So imagine you go to a place of... so you go to Nagoya and whoever's up there. There might be 5 or 10 shinobi about. Really low level. They've dropped in status. As I've discussed many times, I'm going to repeat it. They've dropped in status. Low level. Not doing much. Might be told to go check that quarter. Make sure somebody's been robbing. Find a thief. They'll say, oh, somebody stole something. Or somebody's run away from the province. Go find them. So there might be all that going on. So they're basically not much going on now. Retiring, passing it on. And then basically by 1870, I actually have a document that says, we're done. Shinobi is done. It's over. Not much happens. Then you get the Russian war. So you get a new military. At this point, this is where everybody goes, oh, so what happened to the ninja then? Nothing. They just stopped. There is no evidence anywhere to say that the ninja carried on in a military format. And this is not one of those that no evidence, it still might happen. It genuinely didn't happen. They just scrapped all samurai stuff, including the ninja, and they were like, right, Germans, teachers, I think the army, whoever, so I think it's Americans or the English, teachers, the Navy, and they rebuild their entire military structure purely based on everything. They get rid of the katana, they have Western swords with officers, they get rid of everything, and they're literally like, we are Western. That by 1906, they're fighting the Russians and they're defeating the Russians. They then go through the 1910s and the 1920s, which were quite liberal. Should we do this? Should we do that? Let's discuss. There's even a discussion whether they should drop the Japanese language and adopt English as the world language, as Japanese. And now, today, everybody in Japan would be speaking English, but they decided no against it. It would be too much. So they were like, okay, what should we do? Blah, blah, blah. So there's lots of liberal things going on. And then all of a sudden it swings by the late 1920s. So while it's 1920s, liberalism and like Charlton dance and all that is happening in America. And that's probably why it's happening in Japan, because they're getting their stuff from America. It's very that suddenly there's a shift and it becomes nationalistic, like Third Reich, Nazi, nationalistic in Japan, because of course Hitler's on the rise. Japan are seeing this in the 30s. They're following all that. Maybe Mussolini, I haven't quite got the dates down. So Japan follow this suit and they then impose the image of the samurai. No ninja, the image of the samurai is imposed, and you're like, okay, and death and glory, the Hagakure, get this, and they start assassinating all the liberals, they start getting them out of office, they start arresting them, and the next thing you got secret police going around the streets, everybody waving banners, off they go invade China, and there's just nothing about ninja. It's all modern stuff. They have not taken anything from ninja. Whether any ninjas still exist at this point, like who would say, if somebody's a shinobi in 1870 and they're 20 years old, they've learnt the whole tradition, they've been awarded their 2 swords, they are full-on samurai, they've had 5 years experience in the field because they get their swords at 15, 5 years experience in the field, 20-year-old fully equipped soldier, ninja. He could be, hold on, 20, so 50 at the turn of the century, so 70 years old in 1920. An 80-year-old shinobi would be 1930, but you wouldn't get 90-year-old shinobi. It would be in the war. So, you know, obviously they're not doing anything, so they're pretty much gone. And then we start to see researchers pop up like Gingetsu Ito. We start to see in the 1910s, 1920s, we start to see Fujita Seiko in the 30s, Yumi Onawa 50s. Then we start seeing Takamatsu in the 60s. Then we get Hatsumi in the 70s, and they started playing on the ninja. And of course, you get the 50s comic boom, and then you start to see that. Then Stephen Hayes, over he goes to America. This is ninjutsu. 70s, 80s, 90s, this colossal ninja boom of everything. That eventually gets overthrown by mixed martial arts. Anthony Cummins comes on the scene and goes, "What is this?" Gets rid of it. Let's rebuild this. So by 2008, I get on the scene and I'm like, don't get me wrong, I was doing bow tie jutsu years before that, but I opened up, I was like, I'm ready to go now. 2008, 2010. My books start coming out 2011. 2020, we're here. The world has readopted the historical ninja, and that is where we are at pretty much for a century by century guide to the ninja. I hope that explains what people are asking me. It was a bit of a waffle, which I know we've just talked about. Don't waffle on, Anthony. That's 30 minutes of hardcore talking, probably without much breath. My throat is killing. Sometimes I'm like that because I can't just get enough air. But there you go, that's how we talk. But there you go, 30 minutes done on that. I think I made one mistake, I better go and edit that. But these videos are not about getting it right or wrong in the sense of who's doing what. Sometimes I do make those mistakes, because I can easily go and look these up in books. The information's there. The point I'm trying to get across to you guys is basically I want you guys to be like, okay, that fits in now, I get that. So don't forget, guys, that all that I've just told you is on the assumption that the word ninja is the only word, but it's not. We have lots of other words. Obviously by ninja I mean shinobi no mono. We have lots of other words. Kansha, yute, seto, but shinobi. We have all that sort of stuff we've got to do. Nobody anywhere has actually compared the old Chinese to the new the 1600s Japanese and gone through it. Now we know the links are there, we know the terms are there, but we haven't pushed those terms back in Japanese culture. We just haven't done it because it's actually a really difficult job. But there you go. Right, guys, please do. It's an older book, but it's still relevant. In Search of the Ninja. I hope you enjoy it. It's one of the first books I did after the Shoninki, so it's a long time ago now. But and if you've got it, read it again. Read it again. I might read it again. I've not read that in about 8 years. Bloody hell. I don't get a chance to read my books, but I'd like to. Okay, 30 minutes. Ding. Round 1 over. See you later, chaps and chappers.